Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. Um, this presentation is on couples therapy. I'm Cynthia Camacho, presenting alongside Crystal Alvarado and Marisol Garcia. Um, so, so essentially just a little snapshot. This is our couple. That is Christina on the left and Nicolas on the right. A little bit of background or a synopsis of the couple. So Nicolas is a 27-year-old Mexican cisgender man, where Christina is a 25-year-old white cisgender woman. And a little bit of background about them. So Nicolas has recently initiated the idea of opening up their relationship after 2 years of being monogamous. And the presenting problem, according to the couple, is some discordance or disagreement around their relationship, as well as an increased lack of communication, lack of trust, connectedness, and closeness between them. In the time of this role play, we are viewing the couple during their fourth session of therapy. And then in treating the couple, we decided to implement narrative therapy. So essentially, just to give a little bit of an overview of what narrative therapy is and what that looks like. We believe that the couple could really highly benefit from narrative therapy, as it's been proven to help not only individuals but couples as well to externalize problems. As we see here on the right, there is that comparison of what we often do, which is we internalize the problem, we are the problem, right? um, versus what narrative therapy does is they want to take that we are not the problem, there's something outside that's separate from us that is the problem, not us, right? So um, essentially this externalization of problems allows them, whether the couple or the individual, to find meaning and understanding, especially in this setting between the couple, right? And then for these reasons, alongside the possible differences in value systems that the couple might have because of their different cultural backgrounds, narrative therapy can be beneficial to assist them in gaining that deeper understanding of one another and to externalize the issue that they're facing to work together to come to a decision for their relationship. And so, recognizing that there are discourses that each individual has internalized, and how that influences the manner in which they understand the world and therefore the problems that they face, and how they perceive those problems for themselves. And so, for those reasons, we believe that narrative therapy would be the most impactful approach for the couple. And, we also wanted to show you how that is essentially put into practice by introducing the role play. So, I'm going to go ahead and transition us to that. Um, go ahead and stop sharing my screen and we'll go ahead and start the role play.
Hello, it's great to see both of you again. How have you been since the last time that we met?
Hmm. I mean, I thought everything was getting better, but apparently not.
It's great to see you again. It's been okay. I just feel like we're just starting to understand each other better, but now it feels like we're back to how we were before we came to see you, and like as if no progress has been made at all.
Okay. What I'm hearing is that you are both feeling as though your progress has stopped or maybe even regressed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So today I'll be providing both of you with a paper where you can write out your problem into four main ideas. The first one being labeling your problem, and then we're going to name the effects of the problem in each of your life domains, such as home and work. After that, we're going to evaluate the effects. And then lastly, we're going to look at how the values that both of you think of when considering why the problem is undesirable. How does that sound?
It sounds fine.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Let's begin. How would each of you label the problem that's currently happening right now?
Um, I would label it as disconnecting.
Hmm. I mean, I would label it as, lack of trust. I mean, from Christina not agreeing to an open relationship right away on my terms.
And what kind of effects has the problem had on each domain of your life? Again, such as like maybe home or your work environments?
Um, at home, the disconnect between us is making me sad and it's affecting my ability to really enjoy being at home. And at work, it's impacting my ability to focus because this is, something that's constantly on my mind. Um, in our relationship, it's affecting our romance and how I see our romance, and in general relationships like friendships and stuff. I feel like no one gets it, no one understands me, and that makes me also want to disengage, or it causes me to disengage with my friends and my family as well.
Hmm. I mean, for me at home, honestly, I just try not to talk to Christina. I don't really trust her. I'm not feeling comfortable in my own home. At work, I mean, I'm a man, so I'm not gonna let that stop me from making money. I don't let the lack of trust impact me. I mean, in my other relationships, I mean, I have been kind of going to them and talking to them about my lack of trust in Christina. Um, I've been talking to my guy friends, my brothers, even my dad, and they think I'm right in not trusting her.
I can hear that the problem has impacted you both in very different areas of your life. Can you both tell me when you noticed that the problem started to impact your life?
I mean, honestly, I noticed when I started not wanting to be home anymore because I mean, all we do is argue, but I mean, I just felt like she was just trying to attack me. Um, and it's about the same things that we've been coming to you for. And I also noticed that I'm talking to my friends more and realized, I'm right about wanting to open up the relationships on my terms.
For me, it was when I started trying to have an open conversation with Nicolas about why I should see other people if he is. And at first, I thought it was just going to be, a small conversation. And then I realized that he didn't see it as a conversation. So, you know, that to me was, when I noticed the problem impacting us. And then also just not wanting to talk to my friends about it because they have really good relationships and I feel a little envious of that. So just starting to pull away and just, feeling disconnected from everybody in my life.
Okay. I do want to point out that the problem started impacting both of you when you had different perceptions on whether this was a conversation or an argument, right? Where do you think your values play a role in this problem and why it makes it undesirable?
I mean, honestly, I grew up in a Hispanic household where the man is the one who makes the rules. I mean, in my house growing up, everyone in my home listened to my dad, to what my father said, even if we had different opinions. Sometimes I didn't agree with him, but he's the man of the house. I always thought that that's how all families are. I just expected that. And I expected that out of my own relationship. So when Christina started to question my decision, to open the relationship for me to see other people, I started to not trust her, And that's why I find the problem to be undesirable.
Yeah.
For me, I grew up in a household where my parents worked together. I always appreciated and loved that my dad would ask my mom for advice, and they always encouraged me to speak my mind and state my opinions. And, with that as an example, I thought that's what my relationship would and should be like in the future. The way I grew up in a culture where women have rights and should advocate for themselves, that is why this problem is undesirable to me.
Okay. It seems as though the way that you both grew up played an important role in how you're handling these problems as they come up as well, right?
I mean, I never really thought about how, Christina grew up, honestly. Or that she didn't even grow up like me. I just honestly assumed that everybody did.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as Nicolas.
Okay. So it seems as though the difference impacts the way that you view the problem. And this could be the place where you come together to figure out what the root of the issue is, rather than assume that it's either of your faults.
That's true.
Okay. Now that we were able to establish how the difference in values has played a role in the problem, let's try discussing if it's beneficial to keep these values or to discard them.
You know, it was really insightful to see why Nicolas thinks the way he does. I do want to keep my values, but I want to use them to kind of help him understand how I think and my frame of mind.
I mean, honestly, after just kind of listening to how Christina grew up, I realized that I want to discard mine. I mean, as I realized, this frame of mind and the way that I'm thinking isn't really working for my relationship, and I want to be with Christina.
Okay. Now that you've both figured out if you want to keep or discard your values, let's try to deconstruct the problem. So just to understand, what triggered the problem in the first place.
Um, I would say trying to have a conversation around having an open relationship where I could see other people too. That I think was definitely a trigger.
Nicolas, would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Could you see the situation from another perspective?
Yeah, I mean, now that we've talked about, how Christina grew up, her values, I mean, I can honestly say that she was honestly just trying to have a conversation with me rather than attack me. And she just wanted to, just talk.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can see that, Nicolas, you needed me to explain where my opinions and values stem from to, kind of like better understand that as well.
And how would you both approach this challenge now that you understand its different parts?
I mean, honestly, I would work with Christina, to figure out how we can both understand each other's perspectives, opinions, and, just kind of have an actual conversation. And, I, actually work on why we came here in the first place, right? And like work on having conversations on an open relationship and where we both feel heard and, we both get what we want out of this and but together.
Yeah, I agree. I would want that too.
So now we want to go ahead and look at this case through the lens of feminist theory. So first, we do want to just start off by acknowledging machismo, also known as strong or aggressive masculine pride. Machismo, as we can see, reinforces Nicolas's expectation that Christina should refrain from having the same sexual behavior that he himself explicitly said he wanted to pursue, right? So at the beginning of their conversation that kind of started everything, Nicolas proposed that he wanted to have an open relationship in which he, would go out and meet other people. And once Christina said that she would be okay with him doing that as long as she could do the same, that's kind of where this whole problem arose. And he started to state that he didn't trust her, so on and so forth. So once Christina wanted to have pretty much the same sexual behavior or interest that Nicolas said he wanted to have, as we see the machismo kicks in, and that's where he starts to not trust Christina. We can also see how machismo can interplay with just Nicolas engaging in therapy. As we know, it's not typically seen as very manly to be vulnerable and to talk about your feelings when you're a man, and so that can come into play in just how Nicolas presents to therapy, his engagement in therapy, his willingness, so on and so forth. um, for Christina, it's also really important just to acknowledge that as a white woman, she has had the privilege of decades of feminist organizing within her culture. And, this brings on a lot of empowerment. Um, the empowerment to be able to advocate to have the equal and same sexual interest and behavior as her male counterpart, of which, like I mentioned, Nicolas isn't necessarily used to seeing in his relationships growing up and then just in general in his relationships. Um, so this type of empowerment can oppose the value system seen in machismo. And so as we'll see, and as we'll discuss in this session, you can see that their values are ultimately what are clashing, the values between machismo and having, the privilege of feminist organizing and that type of knowledge. Now through a narrative lens, we'll see that in this role play, the therapist used a statement of position map, in which they were able to label their problem as disconnecting and lack of trust. They were able to name the effects that this problem had on their life domains. So for Christina, she wasn't able to enjoy being home, unable to focus at work, and just generally not engaging with her support circle. And for Nicolas, it was also not being comfortable at home, and just not wanting to talk to Christina, so some of that avoidance. When they were asked to evaluate these side effects, they both stated that there was just a general lack of communication and avoidance within the relationship. And so, as we can see, this can be difficult when they're having a difficult conversation and they aren't able to communicate about it. And so, that's where that disconnect, lack of communication, lack of trust comes in, through that externalized problem. When they were asked to consider what kind of values they have and how that has played into their undesirable problem, Nicolas was able to identify that he grew up in a household where the men weren't questioned. For example, like his mom wouldn't question his dad. And so again, that kind of ties back into that machismo that we spoke about, in which there weren't equal opportunities, equal rights for women to their male counterpart. Whereas for Christina, she grew up seeing collaboration between her parents and a value for advocacy that her mom would have whenever she had any concerns. Um, and so, seeing these two opposing values, the couple was then asked to identify whether they wanted to keep or discard these values when moving forward in their relationship. Um, given that now that they were given the space to understand the externalized problems, they were able to kind of see that the root of the issue was relating to their values that they hold from childhood and how they were just taught to treat their partners in a relationship. Their ability to externalize the problem and the root of the problem allowed them the space to question whether they wanted to keep these values or not. As we saw, Christina valued the way that she was brought up and wanted to keep those values because she explained that it helped her communicate with Nicolas. Whereas Nicolas decided that he didn't want to keep these values anymore. He understood that they didn't serve him in this relationship. Those values weren't aligned with Christina's values, and so therefore he didn't see that as being something that would be beneficial for the relationship, and he was willing to let go of those values. So, of course, we see here that narrative therapy worked well for the couple because of their ability to be open-minded, be able to name their values, and be able to let go of values that weren't serving them in their relationship. As stated, this was the fourth session. So, of course, they would continue to move forward with sessions to address, what kind of new values they wanted to bring into the relationship, how that would help them with that externalized problem that they had, and just help them navigate having that conversation of whether they want to have an open relationship and what that would look like. And here are our references that we used to learn more about narrative therapy and feminist theory. And that's it. Thank you for watching.